Hello, my name's Ed Poole. I'm a member of the Green Party and I'm interviewing candidates who are running to be members of our General Executive. I'm today talking to Haydn Osborne Brookes, who's running to be Campaign Co-ordinator. Hiya.
Hi.
Why did you join the Green Party and why do you think other people should?
I joined the Green Party in 2024 during the general election campaign. I've been politically interested for quite a while. Regrettably, I joined Labour when I was 14 and left after 6 months. During the general election campaign, I live in North Herefordshire, so Elliot Showns ran an amazing campaign here. Obviously, it was one of our target seats, and so I joined the party near the end of that campaign after reading through all the manifestos and seeing, finally there's a party that I fully agree with, or not fully, obviously, but generally massively agree with, and it was really really great to find that. And then also, what really drew me in was the wealth tax policy. It's my favourite one we've got. And then also I would say a lot about our environmental and social side of things as well. Now, why should anyone else join the party? Well, first off, I'll say if you join before the 31st of July, you get a vote in the leadership and GPEX election. So you can vote for me to be campaigns coordinator. I'm going to sneak a cheeky plug in there. And you can vote for all the other amazing candidates as well. But then also, we're a party which is focused on environmental, social, racial, and economic justice. We cover all the bases. And to be honest, we're the only party fighting for you. The Tories have done 14 years of austerity. Labour is just continuing that on. The Lib Dems really are kind of boring and off for nothing. And Reform is in the pocket of the rich. They've got a deputy leader who has 40 million in the bank. Their leader is a multi-millionaire as well, and it's clear, they're in the pockets of the fossil fuel industry. 92% of the donations between 2019 and 2024 came from the fossil fuel industry, and so they don't care about the average working person. I like to think that the Green Party does, and we're the party of the 99% against the 1%, against the establishment.
How do we make a bigger impact with the media?
First off, we have the issue that the media is controlled by the rich, obviously, so that is a sort of a barrier for us, but there are ways we can cut through anyway. I think we need to, at the moment, Reform's displaying a national message saying that it's migrants that are the problem. They're causing our economic damage, they're causing the housing crisis, they're taking our jobs or whatever. And I think we need to present an alternative story, really, to the country and really take control of that national narrative. And I think that narrative needs to be that it's the 99% against the 1%, that it's the ultra rich who are genuinely causing our problems, and we can solve our problems just by uniting under a progressive banner, essentially. Now, we're not going to appeal to everyone in that 99%, but I think we can appeal to a large amount of it by sticking to our focus of, for example, economic justice is going to be a big part of it, as I said. The 99% against the 1%, the 1% being the richest people in the country, by moving towards a message of economic justice. And that's not saying that we don't need to focus on environmental or social justice as well, because it's all interlinked, it's all intersectional. For example, environmental policy, solar panels and renewable energy. Renewable energy is cheaper, it will lower your bills and actually help you. On the social side of things, Carla Denyer put out a really interesting video the other day, which showed that I think it was something like 80% of the organizations which are campaigning against trans rights are actually funded by the fossil fuel industry. And that's a really fascinating fact to me, because it shows that the rich are using it as a distraction and a way of dividing us. Because at the end of the day, if they divide us, then they have more power because we're not united against them, essentially. And yeah, so I think linking everything into that economic message, because at the moment, the economy is at the front of everybody's, especially those faced by inequality. And that's not saying working class people can't care about environmental or social issues. For a history, obviously, I do as much as I can on socials, but I'm not the best at cutting them through. I think we need our leaders to really focus on building on socials, because for example, young people use socials a lot, and there's been so many examples internationally of social media really helping progressive campaigns. Zoran Mamdani's campaign in the Democratic mayoral primary, he used a lot of social media, and he changed it. So in the last primary they did before this one, the highest voting group, I think, was 55 to 65 years old. Now it was 18 to 24-year-olds. And I think his use of social media really helped him cut through with young people and engage them. And obviously, we do have a gigantic potential with young people. We polled at, I think it was 26%, up against Labour's 33% amongst 18 to 24-year-olds. And we're polling second as well with 16 to 18-year-olds who are obviously going to be able to vote in the next general election, which is a massive step forward for British democracy. So yeah, I think social media can really help us cut through as well, and get around the issue of old media really being against us.
How do we attract non-white voters and members to the Green Party?
Yeah, so firstly, I'll just add that I think global majority is a better term rather than non-white, bit more of an inclusive term. But I think that obviously I'm running to be campaigns coordinator. I think that people who are most effective or involved with the campaign need to be at the front of it. So, for example, if we're doing a campaign on rights for global majority people or an anti-racism campaign, we need those global majority people to be at the front of it. So I want to have connections with all the chairs and co-chairs of special interest groups. So every time I'm trying to put together a campaign, I can make sure they're at the heart of it, and that I work with the external comms officer to make sure they're on the public side of it as well. Getting to our events, being on our socials, and everything like that, because it's so important that we have those voices at the front of things which affect them, rather than trying to speak for them, because usually, we don't get it right. So we need that constant communication with them and having them at the heart of our campaigns, which is so important. And I think if we do that with global majority members of the party, and show that we do have some diversity, or a fair amount of diversity in this party, we can actually attract more global majority people by listening to our global majority members and hearing what they want. Because at the end of the day, once we know what they want and once we start campaigning on that, I think it's pretty clear that we'll start attracting other members of those communities, and that applies to every community.
How can the Green Party assure disabled people that we are listening to them?
Yeah, I'd probably link this one back to my idea of working with special interest groups. Disabled people in the party, they're there and we need to listen to them. So I will actively work with disabled people in the party if I'm elected, to make sure we're doing campaigns which are put them at the front of it, and front of the campaigns which affect them most, and making sure that their input is key to it and that they're listened to. Again, that can attract more disabled people to the party. But it's especially important we listen to disabled people now, especially when we're in a time where Labour is cutting money from disabled people, those who need it the most, rather than taxing the rich. They're making the difficult decision to take from the poorest people in society. And so we really do need to stand up for disabled people now, and really make sure they're at the heart of our campaigns around that.
How should we handle transphobia in the Green Party?
Yeah, obviously it's a problem. I think most people know that it is a problem in the party and has been before for a long time. You have to be careful here, of course, because there is the issue that we've had legal problems with this before. Somehow, gender critical views are legally protected. So I don't know why, but the party isn't necessarily allowed to remove people just for having those views, which is pretty ridiculous. Why can't a political party remove people for having views which go against that party? But at the end of the day, I think if I'm elected, I will campaign really, really firmly that trans rights are human rights, trans men are men, trans women are women, and non-binary people are non-binary. Because we need to be firm on those social views and defend the trans community, trans plus community, and also involve them in those campaigns and listen to them, because transphobia is horrible wherever it is. And as I said earlier, it's a method of dividing us, when at the end of the day, trans people are no different from you and I. Essentially, we are people of the working class at the end of the day, is what I'd say. And I do have a massive amount of respect for trans people who do go out and search for their truth and find their truth. Because it takes a lot of courage to come out and do that. So I have gigantic respect for the trans community, and especially the trans people in the party who I've worked with, who have really fought for their community. And I do think a clear message will drive away transphobia. And if there are transphobes in the party, they'll leave if we are firm enough on that view that trans people, deserve just as much respect and just as much fair treatment as anyone else, especially in the face of the Supreme Court ruling, which has been completely unfair and completely prejudiced, and rising transphobia, which is really horrible to see.
How important is economic and social class in politics?
Definitely, really, really important. As I've said, one of my main points on my campaign for campaigns, as I'm calling it, one of my main points is that I want us to focus on this sort of class view that it's 99% against the 1%, and it's all of us against the ultra rich. And so I think that message of class really is going to help us. Obviously, not explicitly saying, well, we're all working class and we're against the ruling class, because that sort of messaging doesn't necessarily work. But that 99% against the 1%, I think is essential, and showing people that the rich are causing most of the problems in our country through their lobbying of politicians, etc., and how we're going to solve that and really provide economic hope, and also through that social and environmental hope, because there's no social or environmental justice without economic justice and all those other intersectional parts. So yeah, class will take a big part in our campaigns, I think, and it will if I'm elected.
What do you think of the Green Party electoral strategy known as Target to Win?
Yeah, so firstly, I'd say obviously Target to Win has had success before. We've got four MPs and 850 over 850 councillors, and that is to Target to Win. But I have also heard complaints about Target to Win, complaints that it's too slow. We've been targeting places like North Herefordshire for over 3 years. We've campaigned to here to win, and I've also heard complaints that it's too costly. In North Herefordshire, we spent £180,000, I think, trying to win here. And whilst most of that was locally sourced, when we're trying to win more, we are going to be faced by financial limits on our campaigns if we're trying to win more seats. And so we do need to also consider that as well. And I've also heard complaints from global majority members of the party that Target to Win doesn't necessarily represent properly represent diverse communities as much. And so I do think, considering all those complaints I've heard, we need to take a step back and have a look at Target to Win and see what problems there are and what solutions we can provide. Also, if there's none, which I don't think there are no problems with it, but if there's none, then that's fine, keep going. But obviously, there are problems with it, and so let's take a look at it. Let's find solutions, and let's sort of take Target to Win to the next level to accommodate for us winning bigger, because we can win bigger.
What other issues are important to you?
Yeah, so youth rights is a big one for me. Obviously, for the past year, I've been under 18s liberation group co-chair. So I've been campaigning a lot of things for young people. Vote to 16 has been one that I've been especially proud of recently, considering the government announcement that they will be lowering the voting age to 16 by next general election. Really exciting, especially considering next week I'm launching a campaign with Natalie Bennett and Carla Denyer on how we can improve citizenship education and have mandatory mock elections in schools, whilst also, having a number of other reforms to make sure that Vote to 16 is effective. So if you're a Young Green, come to Young Green's convention and come see that launch. It's exciting. It'll also be up on socials, but yeah. Youth rights has been a big one for me, and I'm very glad about the Vote to 16 win. And also, obviously, environmental policy. We haven't spoken that much about environmental policy in this interview, but I care so much about the environment. There is no other policies without a safe world. Essentially, we can't have politics if the world's burning. So we do need to make sure the environment is centering all our policies, as it always has been. And then also, I would say the war in Palestine has also been a massive issue for me. Well, not the war, that's the wrong term, the genocide in Gaza, to use the right term, because it's horrible to see thousands of children and innocent people being killed, especially when I consider that those children are people younger than me, and I'm 16 for context for anyone who doesn't know. Children who are younger than me, and I feel so privileged to have the opportunity to literally just be here being interviewed by you today, when there's so many people being slaughtered in Gaza, and it is a horrible thing. And I've been firmly against the genocide in Gaza, and that is one of my key values.
Why do you think we should vote for you, and what would you do if you're elected?
So I want to change the national narrative and provide an alternative of people, showing that migrants aren't the problem, that trans people aren't the problem. At the end of the day, it's the rich who are causing most of our problems in the country, and we need to have that new vision for the country and share that, and really link all our environmental, social, and economic policy together. Through mostly in economic and economic thinking, because that's what's at the front of everyone's minds at the moment, considering all the hardship that's going on. And yeah, so I will change the national narrative in that way as best I can. Um, and then also, I want to put people who are most affected by our campaigns at the heart of them. As I said, trans people need to be at the heart of our campaigns on trans rights. Disabled people need to be at the heart of our campaigns on the disability cuts, etc. And we need to make sure that those who are most affected by our campaigns have a say in it. And I will work with special interest groups to make sure that that is done properly. And then that will also raise up new voices as well. We've got so many people in the party who haven't been publicly shown before, but really should, and they have the talent to. And so I will raise other people up through that as well. And then finally, something I haven't been able to touch on yet is part of the role for campaigns coordinator is also campaigns guidance. And I want to make campaigns guidance much more engaging and accessible and centralized, essentially, because at the moment it's on one website and it's these sort of long essays on the campaigns. And whilst I don't want to discredit the work the past campaigns committee and the past campaigns coordinator, they've done amazingly. I think we can make it more engaging. We can have it in a centralized space. I think ideally on that there's discussion about having a canvassing app, and I think that app could also just have the campaigns guidance on it, hosted there. And yeah, and make it more engaging. We could do some in video form, etc. So yeah, that is my pitch essentially.
Haydn, thanks very much.